Corners? What corners? This is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal Raw Reaction Show, joining you the morning after the night before. Arsenal 3, Monaco 0 in the Champions League, securing a place in the top 3 of the competition. Exciting times, of course, and certainly a very impressive victory indeed, that kind of puts Arsenal into a very healthy position when it comes to progression through to the top 8 of the Champions League and through, of course, to the last 16 of the competition, and hopefully avoiding those treacherous extra couple of playoff fixtures that would need to be played should indeed they fail to get into the top 6. We'll talk the top 8, sorry. We'll talk more about the standings, of course, in a little bit. But good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you, as always, and so much for doing so. Andy, Wilson, Arasilki, I see you, Sweating Merlot, Martin, Barry, Paul, Trader Mike. We've got Rowan and Rob. We've got Amesy and Glenn. We've got Rowan and Black Shine. We've got Shari. We've got Morgie, Olawale, Black Shine. I think I mentioned names over and over again, probably more than once. But good morning to you all joining us in the chat. It's very much appreciated. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. It's Thursday, one of the best days of the week, of course, as well. Rosa says, wait, what? An Arsenal shirt? Yeah, don't worry. I've not run out of shirts to wear. There's a few more still to go. But I just thought we won a game. I probably should wear an Arsenal shirt. Plus, I was in a rush. So there's that as well. I need to find the extra box. That's my job for the rest of the day. Good morning, those to you joining us, of course, around the world and, of course, wherever you happen to be. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never, ever miss a show. Without further ado, though, we're going to jump into today's slides and discuss yesterday's game. And we start, of course, with just an overall look at the performance. Arsenal 3, Monaco 0, back to winning ways. Fantastic stuff. I'm very happy, of course, that Arsenal can indeed be back in this position whereby they are in a much stronger, healthier position than they ever have been before in the competition as well, and back to winning without needing set pieces. That was always going to be something of a focus for Mikel Arteta. Of course, it was in his pre-match press conference, and even when he'd scored or seen his side score 3 goals from open play, did he avoid getting asked questions about set pieces? Yes. Was he then asked about questions from open play? Yes, he was, and that's just the way it goes when you're a manager. But all the talk before the game was, of course, surrounding how Arsenal might cope without a number of their very key players who are indeed out. And it was a back 4 that had some surprises because Partey, despite not training, was indeed ready to start this game. Myles Lewis-Skelly given the opportunity to play at left back. Saliba partnered Kivior as we expected. And then in the midfield, it was Rice, Merino and Ødegaard. I believe perhaps only this first or second time, certainly the first time in the Champions League, that those 3 have partnered one another for a game. Saka, Jesus and Martinelli. Jesus, something of a surprise up top in the lineup as well. Maybe rotation needed ahead of the weekend and giving players like Havertz something of a rest. Trossard, something of a rest as well. And then some inclusions on the bench like Tommy Setford, Naden Heaven, Josh Robinson, Monlouis, a lot of youngsters there as well. Kieran Tierney still not getting a chance, still not getting any minutes. You have to feel for the kid. You have to feel for the guy. I've not got a specific slide on him, so I feel as I should bring up his performance here. But I was really impressed with Jakub Kiwior. Really impressed. And I'm not just talking about the brilliant pass to Gabriel Jesus that he should have scored. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. I'm talking about his overall performance, his tackling, his pace, people talk about how apparently Kiwior's slow. I think he showed in this game that he certainly is not slow. I thought he was competent. I thought he defended really, really well. I thought, he made some really good tackles. And I thought that considering, of course, he's got a youth player effectively next to him as well, which he's also got to think about, I think he did really, really well. And so I want to give Kiwior his flowers here because there wasn't a specific slide dedicated to him. There is one dedicated to the amount of chances that we bloody missed, though, because we missed a hell of a lot of chances in this game, mainly through Gabriel Jesus. First opportunity, of course, coming from that beautiful long ball, as I mentioned, from Jakub Kiwior. Takes the shot down on his chest before then striking it on the volley. It was a poor kind of moment, really. Probably should have tried to keep it under a little bit more control than he managed to do before taking the shot. It is a good save by the Monaco goalkeeper, of course, Masheki. But I do think that still he has to do far better. Then he is laid in by Gabriel Martinelli. Another really good pass, another really good bit of absolute fantastic creation. Before he then sees another shot saved. It's in those moments where you want to kind of see strikers kind of dink the ball in some ways over the keeper. But again, the shot was saved. Martin Ødegaard earning, of course, a one-on-one opportunity. Really good pressure from him to win the ball back in a really good position from Thilo Kehrer. And then, of course, dragging his shot wide of the goal. Gabriel Martinelli dragging a shot, of course, as well, round the post. In fact, he had two opportunities that he put round the right-hand side post. Ødegaard as well, hitting a couple of shots round the post from inside the box as well. It was a game where Arsenal could have scored a hell of a lot more than they ultimately did. And it could have been very much out of sight. And that's despite not really playing like frighteningly good football. Arsenal had 16 shots on the day, 8 on target to Monaco 7 and 2 on target. But I didn't think it was like a stormingly good performance at all. I really didn't think it was a stormingly good performance whatsoever. But what we did see from players like Gabriel Jesus is energy, and we saw Martinelli creating some really good opportunities like we talked about with the Jesus chance as well. So yeah, really, really good indeed, and very happy to see the open play. I think we only had something like 2 corners. I'll have a quick check on the stats. Yeah, 3 corners. So there you go. 3 corners on the day. And you may have seen, of course, as well, I captured a picture, put it on social media. I think I was one of the first to do so, of Nicholas Jover's new North Banksy painting on Hornsey Road. I don't know if you've caught this. If people can't take what it is ostensibly a big joke, I don't know what to say anymore. The world's gone to absolute chaos if you can't take these things with something of a lightheartedness. I think it's brilliant. I think it's hilarious. If you haven't seen North Banksy's kind of images and prints along Hornsey Road by the tunnel, I recommend you go and do so. There's a brilliant one of Kevin Campbell. There's also one of Josh Kroenke that if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a very small Santi Cazorla as well, which is also a very nice touch, I think, too. Anyway, moving back to the game, and Saka's numbers just keep getting better and better and better. 2 goals here. The guy cannot stop getting his goal contribution. I think that's his 9th goal of the Premier League season. He's also got 11 assists so far. 12 assists now, of course, because he counted an assist in that Champions League game with the you counted as an assist going in off the boot of what looks like Thilo Kehrer. Kai Havertz has actually, I think, been credited with the goal. It looked like it was mainly off of Thilo Kehrer, but according to Transfermarkt, according to Google, according to, I think, the official UEFA website, Kai Havertz has indeed been given that goal. We'll talk about that in a second. But Bukayo Saka scoring 2, creating 1. Yes, the second is fortuitous, sure, but the first goal is really, really well made. A fantastic pass from a certain someone we'll talk about separately in a second before it goes to Gabriel Jesus. And despite the fact Gabriel Jesus, of course, missed a couple of chances in that left-hand side position, put a fantastic ball across the box for Saka to just tap in, and was in the right place at the right time. Can't complain too much about that. Very, very happy indeed to see that be the case. But yes, Bukayo Saka getting 2, Kai Havertz scoring, and that means, of course, Kai Havertz's tally so far continues to increase. So when I did say last season, and I really do appreciate Paul for pointing this out to me in one of our previous shows, because I completely forgot that I'd said that Kai Havertz could be on for a 20-goal season. Well, he's on 10, having played 22 games so far this campaign. So less than halfway through the season, and he's already halfway there to that tally I said that he could get between now and the end of the campaign. So thank you, Paul, for putting that out in the other show. Very much appreciate that highlight. But it was Lewis-Skelly's pass that led to the move from Jesus before that goal win. And overall, I thought Myles Lewis-Skelly's performance was really solid. In fact, there were some really good statistics going round about Lewis-Skelly's performance after the game. I think he completed the match with a 95% pass accuracy. No, I think he completed 45 of 47 passes, which was the best passing accuracy of any player that's done at least 25 passes by an Arsenal teenager in a UEFA Champions League game since Johan Djuru against Hamburg in September 2006, who had a 97% pass accuracy. That was the same month that Lewis-Skelly was born to make you feel a little bit old. But I thought he was really confident. The move actually itself, which led to Arsenal's first goal, he was under pressure for a Monaco attacker and spins the player really well before playing that pass in. And I'm going to hold my hands up here. I'm going to apologise to some people, and I'm going to turn around and say that actually what this performance showed me is that maybe I overlooked a little bit too much his presence potentially from that game against Fulham at the weekend. I personally think that I may have been a little too harsh or a little bit too protective of the idea that had Lewis-Skelly played at left back, had we have moved Timber to right back against Fulham, that might have had more of an effect on the game than I gave it credit. So for those people that feel like I would dismiss that point of view, you have an apology from me, because watching that performance from Myles Lewis-Skelly, I think he proved me and potentially others who found or felt that way wrong, because it was a really good performance. Now, of course, I think Fulham away from home is a tougher prospect, obviously, but I guess we'll never know. The argument is should Lewis-Skelly start at left back against Everton and move Timber to right back for that game? I think there's a really good argument that could and should happen against Everton at the weekend. I'd be surprised. Let's see if Calafiori is indeed back. Let's see if Gabriel's back, because that could, of course, change things as well. But let's hypothetically say that neither of them are indeed back in time. Maybe Lewis-Skelly should start that game. So, yeah, you have my apologies. Moving forwards, though, and we need to talk a little bit about Mikel Merino, who I thought was really impressive and probably actually had his best game in an Arsenal shirt yesterday. I really enjoyed his attacking contributions. I liked the domination of Arsenal's midfield and the dynamic of having Rice in the number 6 position and Ødegaard. And that's the first time, really, we've seen those three been able to combine and showcase what we've really been missing from that three. I thought he got into those wide left positions a lot better than perhaps Rice can. More, no, maybe not better, but certainly more comfortably, because he is left-footed. So when you're able to get Merino into those left half spaces, it means he can kind of drive those low crosses across the box, as we saw on a couple of occasions, which really should have, I think, generated better chances than ultimately it did. But I think the more that he plays, the more that he gets accustomed to playing that role in this Arsenal team, we will get more from him. And I did speak to him actually after the game, and you'll be able to get those words a little bit later on today on the football.london website. So make sure you look out for that interview a little later on. He's a really good speaker, as you know. I think I've played some of the words from Merino before on the channel. And he, talked very highly of Myles Lewis-Skelly and some others. So look out for those quotes a little bit later on today. But yeah, I thought he was really, really good, and I really enjoyed his performance overall. And I think that, that's again a really encouraging sign for the future about what they could produce. Damien says Moreno and Martinelli's kind of link up was promising as well. Rob says Moreno was very good, put to shame those fans who were down on him after 5 minutes of playing. Silly sausages. Indeed, you're always going to get those fans. You're always going to get those fans that want to make an opinion or create a conclusion on a player that's basically played barely any minutes of football, while of course also being out injured. But that's just the way it goes for some people. So as it stands in terms of the Champions League table, of course, Arsenal move up to third, 6 games played, 11 goals scored, only 2 goals conceded, which is very impressive. Arsenal conceding just 2 goals. Only Inter Milan and Liverpool have conceded fewer goals over the course of the Champions League's first 6 matches, only both conceding 1. Inter, of course, losing 1-0 at Bayer Leverkusen, suffering their first defeat of the competition. But it means that Arsenal sit on 13 points. But it doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that top 8 is secured, because if you have a look outside the top 8, there are not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, but 4 teams sitting on 12 points. Arsenal have got 2 more games to play. They play against Dinamo Zagreb, who currently sit in 24th place, but they have a lot of motivation, Zagreb, because they sit in the final qualifying spot for the playoff round, and they will not want to lose that, especially when you've got clubs like PSG, Stuttgart, Shakhtar Donetsk, of course, all chasing potentially those places. And they know that those 2 teams, PSG and Stuttgart, on 7 could catch them. PSG, I think, have got Manchester City up next as well. So there's lots of chances for teams to still pick up points. But those 12-point teams, Borussia Dortmund on 9, Bayern Munich on 10, Atletico Madrid in 11th, and Milan on 12th. But then you've got Atalanta, Juventus, both on 11 points. Juventus, of course, beating Manchester City. Benfica, Monaco, Sporting, Club Brugge, and Feyenoord on 10. Then we have to drop down to 20th place before we find Real Madrid sitting on 9 points after 6 games. Then you have to go to 22nd place before you find Manchester City. They could be in a little bit of bother. I don't think they will. I think they will still be fine. As I mentioned, they do play PSG next in the Champions League, away from home, it should be pointed out, before they then host Club Brugge on the final day. And Bruges are one of those teams at the moment that are still sitting, in around those kind of 9 to 24 places. So very, very interesting to see what goes down. But you're going to need a few more wins from Stuttgart and PSG before Man City begins to get in trouble, and Dinamo Zagreb and PSV. And, of course, I think Arsenal may even help out City with a win over Dinamo. It should also be pointed out, of course, the higher up the table that Arsenal do finish, the better it is that they will find their opponents for the rounds of 16 onwards. They play against teams that finish further down the league phase. Table teams are seeded in those knockout phases. So it is within Arsenal's interest to try and finish as high up the table as possible. Arsenal's next game at home to Dinamo Zagreb before they then play 30th place Girona, who by that final game could already be out of the competition. So that might indeed be beneficial. It might indeed create a little bit of difficulty for Arsenal. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Well, let's go to part 2 and your questions and the advent calendar right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show, where we tackle some of your thoughts and questions and more, and we also need to jump to our Advent calendar. It's now the 12th of December, which is an important day for the Advent calendar, because if you have a look in this top left-hand corner, every day I pick up this Advent calendar, I've grabbed it, and my thumb has gone through the number 12. So I'm not going to have to worry about continuing to do that, because we are going to open number 12 today, and it is a chocolate egg, which is the best one, I think. Dairy milk, plain, of course, but a chocolate dairy milk truffle cannot be sniffed at. I mean, it can be sniffed at, but you know what I mean. It's just a saying. Come on, guys, don't get serious. Anyway, let's jump into the chat, shall we, and tackle some of your thoughts, questions, queries, and theories ahead, of course, of the weekends too, and maybe some other topics. We'll see how many we get through. Mike, of course, in the chat box this morning, joining us over from America. It was nice to see you yesterday, my friend. I just wish Myles Lewis-Skelly wasn't named after the poniest football league in the world. I think MLS is improving. I wouldn't call it the poniest league in the world. I think it's getting better. I think it's getting a lot better. I think there's some really impressive players that are coming through MLS, and you should be supporting, is it Florida's team? I guess Orlando, right? Is there any other Florida-based MLS teams other than Orlando? You'll have to let me know. Myles Lewis-Skelly says Ainsley has recently recovered from a foot infection as well. Arteta will control his minutes carefully, but what a player he is, and he will become better. Dapper Mo says, morning, Tom. Against Fulham, Myles Lewis-Skelly only had one training session after his injury. I don't think it would have been fair to throw him in against Adama Traore. Arteta subbed him once with MON started attacking. I guess that's fair enough. Amberley says, perhaps not, regarding a comment made by Soup, which was Merino. Is it a coincidence that his best game is against a European team where the tempo is maybe slower than in the Premier League? And in response to that, Amberley says, perhaps not. I think he's maybe still not quite up to speed in the Premier League, which would be understandable. And this is, I think, the answer. It might be, of course, a little bit of the combination of the two. Yes, European football's a bit slower, but what I would say is that, of course, he's still having to work his way back from fitness. He actually missed that game against West Ham because he had another issue that he had to overcome again off the back of that more significant injury he suffered at the start of the season. He's never going to be completely up to speed. I don't think we're going to see the best of Mikel Merino this season. I think we'll see that next season. But still, I thought it was a really impressive performance. Amberley says also, we've quietly put ourselves in quite a good position with goal difference after Sporting. Monaco need to keep pushing it up to the next 2 games. We've actually have a look at Arsenal's goal difference. It's currently on +9. The next best behind us is Dortmund and Bayern Munich, both on +9. There is no other better goal difference other than those 3 teams besides the top 2, Liverpool on +12, Barcelona on +14. So we needed to get a bigger win. This has definitely helped that, and we will look to do that again with Dinamo Zagreb, of course, coming to the Emirates in a few weeks' time. That game against Zagreb, of course, is not until the new year. It's now the European break. We've got Everton at home on Saturday before then hosting Palace in the League Cup on Wednesday. We then go away again to Palace just a few days later on that Saturday. Then we play on the Friday, the December 27th after Christmas against Ipswich at home. We then have a New Year's Day game against Brentford. Very much looking forward to that one. January 4th, we then go to Brighton as well, just 3 days after that. January 12th, we go, of course, to Manchester United. So we host Manchester United in the FA Cup before then hosting a few days later, only 3 days later, Spurs, and then hosting a few days later, Aston Villa. 3 huge home games before another big home game in the Champions League at that January 22nd. So actually, we've got well over a month until Arsenal's next Champions League game. So all the focus is on the cup competitions and, of course, the Premier League from here. It was really important we did get that result. And I think if we beat Zagreb, just having a quick look at that table again, if we just get it up on screen for you, Arsenal would be on 16 points. I don't know the other games. Should have a quick look at Champions League fixtures, and then we can have a try and a little bit of a workout of what needs to happen. So Borussia Dortmund play Bologna, who are currently sitting in 33rd place. So you'd think they would win. We should probably look at the teams below us, shouldn't we? Bayer Leverkusen play Atletico Madrid. So that's 4th against 11th. So that should help Arsenal out to a degree, those two playing each other. Benfica play Barcelona. Benfica, one of those teams sitting on 10 points. Again, you'd hope that that might help out Arsenal as well. Liverpool playing Lille. Again, another game against one of the teams at the moment doing quite well. They're in 8th place right now, are Lille, and have had a really good campaign. You've got, who else have we got? Inter away at Sparta Prague. You would assume that they would win that. You've got Stade Brest, who have had a really good season, sitting in 7th place. They play away against Shakhtar Donetsk. You probably expect them to win that, but Shakhtar can be a good team. You've got Bayern against Feyenoord as well. Feyenoord currently sitting in 18th. Bayern, of course, sitting in that 10th. You'd expect them to win that. And PSG playing Man City, but that doesn't really affect things down at the top of the table anyway. Milan plays Girona. You would expect them to win that game. Anyone else that we're forgetting? Who are Aston Villa playing? Aston Villa are playing against... Who are Aston Villa playing? Why can't I find it? Monaco, away from home. So that could be interesting. And Atalanta as well are at home to Sturm Graz. Atalanta, of course, sitting currently in 13th place. Player at home to Sturm Graz. Mika Bieref, of course, who scored once again last night. I do feel like I'm forgetting somebody else in the mix. But I can't see who that might be. Juve? Where are Juve? Juventus are 14th on 11 points, and they're playing Club Bruges, who are also around that middle point. Yeah, 19 points. So it's very interesting, isn't it? I'm kind of torn on this league phase. I'm a little bit like, I kind of like these big teams playing each other, and it is getting interesting towards the end of it. I'm also a bit like, the games lack any weight, really. The games really do lack quite an element of weight to them. There's not as much jeopardy, it feels like, to these games, and it's hard, I think, to get the crowd up for these games, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, what changes. Inter Miami were the other Florida-based MLS team, of course. Yes. I mean, you're looking at it, you're saying, Inter Miami, obviously. Sorry, we're not an MLS expert. Eamon says, hi, Tom. Missed the start of the show, so I'm sorry if you've already mentioned this, but what was the XG in the first half? I guess we can have a little look if it was indeed published by XG Philosophy. Let's see. Halftime. Did they produce a halftime rating? No, they didn't. I can give you the XG at full time, which was 2.20. So Arsenal actually outperformed their XG on the night still. Eamon says, sorry, that was just the question we answered. Alvamod says, Jesus and Sterling should never play for Arsenal again. I mean, wow. I don't know what you want to do, Alvamod, in terms of restricting the number of minutes that we've got for players. We haven't got much of a team left if we start saying that players can't play anymore. Goodness gracious. Matt says no Balogun last night. I saw he was on the bench for their last league game. He's undergoing shoulder surgery. He's going to be out for a little while now as well. Avamod says at halftime the XG was 1.24. So does Sam. So I'm happy to go with that. It's according to FOTMob. And we were 1-0 up. So we were only slightly underperforming it, but we did have some big chances that we, of course, did miss. Mike says both of Jesus' chances were saved. Erdegaard's, of course, was also missed. Chuno says, I actually thought Jesus did quite well against Monaco, apart from the awful misses. Would not mind him starting, considering Havertz has been poor in the last few games. I mean, I would. I'm not starting Jesus at the weekend. There's absolutely no chance. Havertz comes straight back in. He did have the best of games, of course, against Fulham, but to be honest, not many people did at all. And Jesus offered next to nothing when he came off the bench against Fulham as well. So Havertz will be coming straight back in for me. Watermelon says, why is everyone hating on Jesus so much? Yes, he isn't scoring goals, but did you see how fluent the attack was yesterday? The space was created for Saka and Erdegaard, and the midfielders were coming much deeper as well. I think there is definitely praise to be had for Jesus for yesterday's performance. I will say that Monaco's defending was very, very questionable. Very, very questionable. So I think that from that point of view, I'm very, very standoffish in kind of giving out too much praise because I think there is, external factors that definitely fed into it. But yeah, I would lean into the idea that, he's worthy of praise, but I wouldn't go as far as some have said by now starting him in the next league game. I think that's a bit far. Rob says, what's your thoughts on Partey playing after his load-related injuries? Needs must, Rob. It's needs must. Like, we haven't got the players. And so if it means that a player's got to train inside for a little bit or, can't be exposed, it's also worth pointing out that we don't know what happened in the rest of that training session. But without a doubt, Rob, we've got to protect these players as much as we can. It's about managing the load of players, and that might happen also on the training ground as well. But he is obviously dealing with a lot of load management issues, and I did confirm that, of course, yesterday. So thank you, Rob, for allowing me to do that. Eddie says, where do you think the Tierney minutes can come from this season? If we still want to make some money moving him on, I'm not sure when his contract expires. I thought it was harsh that he didn't get any minutes yesterday, but I've kind of, in terms of trying to take a step back, if you will, from the picture, it's not about making money. It's about winning games. And Arsenal cannot be prioritising getting him minutes just to try and sell him. He may play against Palace. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But any amount of money that we can make off Tierney, I can't see being particularly influenced much by any small cameo he makes. Even if he had a really good game, I don't think it would change how much he's going to be worth in the market, if at all. Damien says they have two Brazilian fullbacks that want to attack, and the former Southampton centre-half playing at centre-half, so I'm not surprised their defence was rather questionable. King says the issue with Jesus is his age, wages, and experience. We expect much more from him, and he is declining and is one of the highest earners in the team. Tripp says, I've just been on North Banksy's Instagram page with the paintings. What is controversial about them? Can someone please explain? I think they're done in really good taste. I think they're really well done, and I think that I don't really see the complaints. I know if there's like a legal aspect of it. I don't know if there's kind of a question mark about the legalities of it. I don't know, but from a kind of a cringe standpoint, as some people are trying to point out, I think the cringy ones are the ones complaining about them, to be honest. Nonzo says, no love for Kiv. Did you not hear my bit at the start? I did a whole bit dedicated to Kivior. So, yes, I think you may have missed that. Amberley says, we can't risk Partey getting injured again. Simple as that. He would have gone in the... Tierney. Getting injured again. Simple as that. He would have gone in the summer if he hadn't been out for ages yet. Again, Boss says, what would you rate Erdegaard's performance yesterday? It was solid. He missed some opportunities, which he should have scored, but he also created some really good opportunities as well. Very important in terms of build-up. So just a standard average performance from Erdegaard yesterday. Wasn't amazing, wasn't bad, was just very standard from Erdegaard. And other players, of course, had better games, as we've talked about. Merino, Kivior, and Saka, of course. Tripp says, what is controversial? Oh, we've done that one already. Aiden says, fans were loving Nicholas Jova being included as well as they walked by as well. It's just a joke. It's just a fun piece of... it's amazing, isn't it, how much emphasis there's been on Arsenal and set pieces. I was watching some content. They were talking about like how much attention a set piece coach is getting, and how annoying Arsenal fans are. Focus on yourselves, people. Like, don't let us wind you up so much. Don't let us live rent free in your minds non-stop. Antonio says, Tom, what have we learned from yesterday's game against Monaco, and what do you make about the bad finishing of some of the attackers? Is it concerning? I mean, we scored 3 goals. We've won the last 5 of 6 matches, scoring a total of 19, I think, goals. So in terms of finishing, should we have done better yesterday? Yes. We absolutely should have done. But we've scored a lot of goals in the last few matches, so it's not really too much I can complain about, if I'm being overly honest. I learned from yesterday's game that actually Lewis-Skelly maybe can offer a bit more in terms of an influence on the performance than maybe I gave him credit for against, in that Fulham performance. I think we learned that Kivior needs to be a little bit more respected. I think that Mikel Merino, of course, is an exciting player that also doesn't need to be ruled out so soon on in his Arsenal career. So I think we learned plenty from yesterday's game. Jay Varron says, only our fans would complain after winning 3-0. It's the Arsenal way. It's the Arsenal way. Matt says, Tom, what's your midfield to play Everton knowing that Rice is banned? He's not banned. I don't know why people think he's banned. Declan Rice is not banned from this game. All you need to do to check if you really want to know if Declan Rice is banned from a game in the Premier League is he needs to pick up 5 yellow cards in the Premier League, which he hasn't. He's got 3. So I don't know why people, for some reason, think that Declan Rice is suspended for this game. He's not. He's only got 3 yellow cards. He's picked up 5 yellow cards in all competitions. Has he even? I don't think he's even picked up 5 competitions and 5 yellow cards in all competitions. He's only got 3 yellow cards. He got 2 yellow cards in one game against Brighton. That gets turned into a red. That doesn't count towards a 5 yellow card tally. So for those of you that think he's got 5 yellows and therefore he's suspended, he's not. Because when you get 2 yellows in the same game, they don't count towards your 5 yellow card tally. So if you go on the official Premier League website and you have a look at how many yellow cards it comes up with for this season, it will show you that he has picked up. No, not all seasons. We want this season. Thank you. Yellow cards, 3. Red cards, 1. So, yeah, Declan Rice is not suspended for this game. He only has 3 yellow cards. But you're not the only one, Matt, who's made that mistake. So don't worry about that. What do you think about Partey sitting some of the games out so that Rice, Merino, and Odegaard can play? It would also save Partey in terms of fitness. It's definitely something that should happen, 100%. Ant says, bearing in mind how closely Arteta and Edu work in the transfer window, who is Arteta putting his faith in during this winter period? Jason Ato is obviously the man that stepped up into the position of Edu's role, while Edu is, of course, not there. So that's going to be interesting to see how his job kind of affects and what goes on for this winter window as well. Runs of Cows says, I also wanted to look at North Banksy's pictures and end up looking at a defaced Banksy in North London, and that's because the internet doesn't like me. So there you go. Amy says, who is spreading the Rice yellow card rumours? It's just social media, isn't it? Clive says, are you sure, Rice? Yes, I'm sure. I checked this with the Premier League as well. Like, it's not like I've just made this up. I sent an email to the Premier League about this because you're not alone in looking at those 2 yellow cards and thinking that meant he is indeed suspended. I definitely checked in with the Premier League about this. Let me see if I can find you the email response or text response. Was it on WhatsApp? Did I send this message on WhatsApp? Declan Rice. Yellow card. Yes. Yeah. The Premier League website is correct, as red cards should cancel out 2 yellows from the Brighton game. And indeed, the Premier League website is correct. It's recorded as a red card when you get 2 yellows in one game. So he is only on, at that time, it was 2 yellows when I asked the question. So yes, I'm only sure. Don't mess with me, Clive. Don't make me worry. When you ask me things, I get a little bit concerned. So yeah, but I checked in with the Premier League just to make sure, because I was I was worried when I counted up at that time, of course, when he got those 2 yellows, that he was already on 3. Or I think it was actually on 4 at the time. So, yeah, with those 2 yellows against Brighton. So, yes, I might actually write a piece about that just to fully clarify the Premier League ruling on Declan Rice and him not being suspended, just so everybody says. Ames says, I read Sam Dean's article about Jason Ato, said to be also being considered for the permanent role. He is, among other options. Roberto Alabe, we know, is a big kind of figurehead in those discussions as well, I think. So let's wait and see what happens. I think they might look to see his work at the January window as well. Yeah, Amberley, well pointed out. Clive, be nice. Don't set Tom off on another rant. We don't want one of them. Damien says, what doesn't help is people look at websites like Footy Stats and it says Rice has 5 yellows. But like you say, a simple check on the Premier League website gives you rounds. Exactly. Just check well-versed. Check the right websites and it will give you the right information. If you go on the Premier League website, it shows you Declan Rice has 3 yellow cards. Mike says, I prefer to get my yellow cards news from the Arsenal Vision. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's fair enough. If Clive wants to turn around and say there's 5 yellow cards, I don't care if he was joking. I think we should start a rumour. I think we should go to hashtag Twitter and we'll go to Twitter and be like hashtag Clive 5 yellows. I think that could be a hashtag we could start today. Hashtag Clive 5 yellows. I think it is. I think we should be giving Clive a bit of a yellow card on today's show to steal Sophie's yellow card system. Comp says, for me personally, we need / must sign 6 players in the Arsenal men's squad. I would like to see Gyökeres, Marmoush, Alex Bainer, Adam Wharton, Hein, and Ait-Nouri. Please be proactive in the window. Yes. Let's spend £84 million on Gyökeres and £60 million on Wharton and 50-odd million quid on Marmoush in January. That'd be great, wouldn't it? We'd love to see that. There's 2 strikers in that as well, kind of madly. OJ says, do you think Arsenal, the way that we're playing, we save energy in the last half of the season? Feels like that we're not our usual selves. I mean, if we have a similar kind of repeat of last season, that would be indeed what we could expect. But last season's last half of the season was rather matt. To have only not won 2 games, drawing at City and losing at home to Villa, was an incredible run. Very difficult to try and repeat that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Peter says, we need a good left winger to help us push for the Premier League title. I've said before, I think we need a versatile attacking player, and Ademola Lookman is that player that I'd personally go for. Alex says, can Nwaneri and Odegaard play in the same team? His minutes are going to be so squashed. If not, I think so. I think you can probably play Nwaneri with Odegaard, or maybe you can bring him on for Saka and give him some opportunities that way. So, yeah, I think there's definitely scope for that to happen in future games. But he's still very young. He's only 17. So I think we need to give him more minutes, yes, but I think there's not a necessity to play him with Odegaard at the moment, but certainly in rotation. Clive says, would you take Marcus Rashford if the numbers were right? No, I wouldn't. The numbers aren't going to be right in terms of his wages, that's for sure. The wages are going to be absolutely redonkulous if we were to sign Marcus Rashford. I also don't really want to see another project player come in to Arsenal. I'd like Arsenal to go out in the window and sign players that are very much on an upward trajectory and not players like Kai Havertz, who I think we've done a good job with, but I still don't think necessarily the revival project is finished with Havertz. So I wouldn't be personally going for that. Jeffrey says, what do you think about John Duran? I'd take him. That's a profile that's more interesting to me. A profile of a player that's clearly on the up, that's still a very young player as well. I don't know how much he would cost, but I think that's very interesting indeed to see like those types of players that have got that. The problem with Duran is, of course, we've only really got a small sample size of evidence so far. And that's what maybe is a little bit restricting of me jumping on the bandwagon with Duran entirely. But he's definitely a player that I will be very much keeping an eye on and curious to see if there is any Arsenal interest moving into the future. So there we go. I think that will bring us to the end of today's show. We'll talk more about transfers tomorrow, I think. And of course, tomorrow there will be another Mikel Arteta press conference ahead of the game against Everton. These games come thick and fast. As I mentioned earlier, you'll be able to get my interview with Mikel Merino over on the Football.London website around midday, so make sure you look out for that. And I look forward, of course, as well to bringing you more information and more news about the club and anything else that happens in the next 24 hours in tomorrow morning show, bright and early, 8 p.m. UK time. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your Thursday. It's always a good one. And I will see you again tomorrow morning. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.